Hey folks, this is Aaron the Pedantic. I really wanted to stream this because I've liked doing that lately, but my internet's acting kind of slow, and I don't want to expose y'all to shitty content. So today we are going to talk about the thief in Dungeon Crawl Classics. So as somebody who started with 5th edition and worked my way kind of backward in a way, I have to say I absolutely fucking adore the thief in Dungeon Crawl Classics. I know I've been saying that with basically every class, and that's why DCC is one of my favorite games. So, what is different about the thief in Dungeon Crawl Classics as opposed to the rogue in 5th edition? First off, you have these explicit abilities that other people do not have. There's just no way around it. So in 5th edition, you can get certain skill proficiencies and toolkits proficiencies and things like that. And you can basically do what a rogue can do with a lot of things, with the only exception that I see here would be kind of like backstabbing. But everything else, I mean, there's nothing preventing somebody from making a character that can do these things without being a rogue. And to me, that is sad because I like class niche. I like the idea that your character is going to be, that your class really makes your character something special. And in DCC, a thief is incredibly special. In fact, I would say they are damn near vital in a lot of ways. Just as all of the classes are really in their own way. So let's look at what you get with being a thief. So first off, you are going to notice that you are going to have access to basically leather armor is what you'll have at your disposal. At least that's kind of the thing is that technically I believe that you can actually go higher than that. Let's actually have a look. Let's see. All right. So weapon training, careful in their choice of armor as it affects their use of their skills. That's what I was pretty sure of. Basically, if you notice, whenever you look at armor, there is a thing called a check penalty. And that is going to affect what you're able to do as a thief. Because it's going to affect any skill that involves movement, basically. So right here we have leather armor equipped. We have a -1 to our check penalty. So everything that we have here is going to be negatively affected by that in some way, which is not fun, right? But at the same time, that armor class is incredibly important. So this is a randomly rolled character, 100% random. The only thing that might be different is that with the procedure that I used with the generator, basically it will swap out the most important two stats, basically. So agility is really kind of low for this character, and that's not too abnormal. So they have a 13, which is above average. But at the same time, whenever you're playing something that is going to be using this for a lot of its stats, that can feel like a big deal. Luck is also very important to a thief because of the fact that you have the luck die. And you're going to want to make use of that luck die as much as possible. So, you have the action dice of a d20. I mean, that's standard. The way that that's going to change is eventually you're going to be able to do multiple actions just like any other class. And as a thief, you can pretty much do whatever. So once you get to level 6, you'll get a d14 to add to the d20. So the way that works is think of it as, you get instead of having like extra attack or something like that, something that builds, like redefines what your action can be. Instead, you can just do more actions, but it caps it 2. And I understand that anything beyond 2 gets kind of crazy. So At level 6, you'll be able to do a D14. And as you look, the attack bonus is going to increase kind of steadily. Definitely nothing like the warrior, which is kind of crazy. The warriors, but that's what they're all about. So it's pretty decent. You never get out of table 2 for crits, which is understandable because you're going to be doing a lot of crits as a thief. You don't do sneak attack really and get just extra dice. What you get is you get criticals based off of your backstab. So it's pretty sweet. You're going to have a very high reflex bonus. You have a luck die that's going to improve dramatically as you play. And basically the way that works, I've already explained luck, but anytime that you do a roll, that is a, like a skill roll or an attack roll, something that uses typically the D20. Anytime that you're doing an action, I guess I should say, you can add, you can spend a point of luck in order to roll your luck die. And you can spend as many points of luck as you want, as long as you don't run out of luck. It's a stat, so it's like strength or whatever. When you spend it, it's going to have some negative consequences the more you spend it, because basically your luck is literally running out, and you need that luck if you get knocked unconscious to not die. You need the luck for a lot of things, but unlike other people, they spend 1 point of luck, they get 1 point added to their roll. You get a D3 at level 1, you get a D4 at level 2, and it goes up and up and up until eventually you can get, between 1 and 16 for every point spent. So you can be this monster that's just getting all of this, this awesome bonus, from spending luck. And every night that you sleep, you get a point of luck equal to your level. So if I'm at level 4 and I sleep, I get 4 luck points back. So you become a total monster when it comes to just being really good at things. And this is even more exacerbated, I should say, in a positive way, by your skills. So as you see, your skill bonuses are kind of small to begin with. So these are the things that whenever you attempt these skills, you get these bonuses. And it's based off of what your alignment is. So clearly the lawful ones, they're really good at hiding. They're really good at climbing, finding traps, disabling traps. That's what they're really good at. The chaotic ones, they're really good at stabbing you in the back. They're really good at sneaking, just moving quietly. Very good at disguise, very good with poison. And then neutral, they're going to be very good with pickpocketing, with climbing, with sneaking, with forging documents, because they don't mind breaking the law if they need to. And they're very good at reading from scrolls. So that's another thing that we're going to get into in a minute. But, it gets insane once you get up to the top end. But of course everything gets insane once you get to that part. But just the long story short, you're going to be incredibly reliable with your abilities when everyone else can't even roll a D20 to try and do what you do. They can try and roll a D10. And, they really need a lot of luck to make anything happen. So you really are just this incredibly useful character. Just by virtue of being a thief, and you just get more useful with time. So I've explained the luck die. Backstab. Now, backstab is not quite sneak attack. Obviously, there's no advantage mechanic built into this game. Instead, you have the dice chain. But here's how backstab works. So backstab is going to function when you are either attacking from behind. So you just have to attack from behind, or you have to attack when they are otherwise unnoticed. When you're otherwise unnoticed. So a lot of times, what you might do is you might use sneak silently in conjunction with backstab to kind of kick things off, or you might use hide in shadows. So it can, I would argue, apply with ranged shots. If you're hiding from the shadows and you're taking a shot, But once they know where you're at and they're aware, it's a different story. I would say from that point, you really need to be trying to flank them. So the way the procedure itself works is you roll your attack, you add your normal bonuses. So in this case, if we're attacking from melee and we're using our dagger, we don't have any bonuses at all, just because we're level 1 and you just don't really have anything there. Is that accurate? Let me check that real quick. I thought that you have a +1. No, you have a +0 at level 1. Okay. That's not too weird. So no bonus really. So just a pure D20. So I get to add a +3 to that because I'm doing a backstab. If I hit, then it's a critical. Just no questions. It is a critical. So this is where things get very, very lethal for anyone who's facing a thief. So I get to roll a D10 on crit table 2. One of these times I'll go over the crit tables. But for now, all you really need to know is that a D10 on crit table 2 is pretty solid, especially the fact that you can reliably do so pretty often if you are just being, the kind of player that is making use of it. Now, it's not necessarily going to be something that you're going to be able to use every single round unless you're putting yourself in danger. And here's the thing. The warrior has a D12 hit die. What do you have? You have a D6. So a D6 hit die is not a lot. This character has 12 hit points at level 1, but a lot of that comes from this right here. They have a +2 stamina. That has been applied twice. First for level 0, twice, or second for level 1. So that's +4 right there. They had a pretty good roll with their level 0, probably getting a 2 or a 3 or something like that. And then they got a 5 or a 6 probably for their second one. So, they got lucky. They got lucky. Usually you're not going to have this many hit points as a thief at level 1. And so that means that you're going to be kind of vulnerable, especially considering the heavier the armor you wear, the worse you are at doing your skills, and also the more vulnerable you are to fumbles. So this particular character has an AC of 13, which is pretty decent. It's pretty decent for DCC. It's not wonderful, though. So you're not going to want to be waiting in the middle of combat if you can help it. You're going to want to try to make use of ranged attacks. You're going to want to try and pick somebody off who's unsuspecting. Maybe you're the one who kind of kicks off the combat because that critical is really nice. But you're kind of squishy. So this is a character that you're really going to play cautiously. But at the same time, you're capable. You're pretty damn capable. As far as your weaponry goes, you have access to a lot of things. Let me go back up. So it says here you're trained in the blackjack, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a small club used to knock people out. Blowgun, a crossbow, a dagger, a dart, a garrote. I think that's how it's pronounced. Piano wire, basically. Long sword, short sword, sling, and staff. So they have a pretty good spread of weaponry that they have at their disposal. A long sword's a pretty big deal. But their dagger is their friend. So a dagger is typically going to do a D4. But if you're using it to backstab, you'll notice it has an asterisk next to it. And that indicates that whenever you backstab, then it actually is a D10. So you do even more damage with that dagger whenever you're doing that. There is a proviso, and by the way, that also applies to the garrote. There is a proviso that basically says the critical will only work if there are basically obvious weak points. So, you can't really do this hit that's, very targeting specific organs and whatnot if you don't know which organs to target. which makes sense. For a warrior, it's a little bit more of kind of like an intuition, kind of a luck type thing where it's like, yeah, you got like a 15 to 5, or 15 to 10 to 5% chance, to just happen to, like cut them right in an artery or something like that. So, but for the thief, it's much more calculated. Okay, so sneak silently. So you'll notice that sneak silently and hide in shadows are two different things. So stealth has kind of been divided in these categories. One thing to know is that you are not doing a contested roll. So you don't need to roll this and then have them roll to see if they notice you. It's just purely how hard is it? It's usually going to be anywhere from a DC 10 to a DC 20. And so as long as you roll equal to or higher than the difficulty class, you succeeded. So this is just going to be like, how loud is the terrain that you're walking across? Is it going to make a lot of noise? Is there a lot of light outside? Basically all those kinds of things are what the DM would consider, what the judge would consider whenever having you make the roll, and you just have to beat that. So hide in shadows is explicitly just, you're hiding in the shadows. This is not moving around. This is just hiding. So this is what I would use a lot whenever you're trying to do a ranged assault where from the shadows to pick off somebody. So notice they're better at moving quietly than they are hiding in shadows. Kind of weird, but at the same time, it tells you what you might get more use out of. So pickpocket is just what it sounds like, really. Climb sheer surfaces, that is going to vary depending on like if there are any kind of footholds of any kind, if it's just perfectly smooth. Basically, if it's perfectly smooth, you would expect to have to roll a 20. If it's got some footholds, maybe a 15 or a 10. So pick lock is exactly what you would think it is. Find trap and disable trap. Interesting thing about these is, so you only, if you're trying to disable the trap, you only trigger it if you roll a 1. So it's not, typically that common that you're going to trigger the trap if you find it. Unless you're just being kind of goofy about it. Which it's an interesting design choice, I have to say. So really there's not much reason to not try to disable a trap if you spot it. Unless you want to use it against the enemy. Maybe you trick them into running into it. Forged documents. I mean, it kind of just what it sounds like. So, disguise self. It has like some metrics here where it suggests that the more likely people are to tell, let's say you're trying to disguise yourself and fool somebody that's very close to this person that you're pretending to be, then it's a very, very, very hard task to do. If you're just kind of like making yourself look a little bit different, but you're just about the same height and all those kinds of things, it's really easy. Read languages. So this is something that might sound kind of weird, but basically you have a skill that lets you read other languages that you don't know necessarily, and you can kind of figure out what it's trying to say. So it's a very interesting skill. And basically the higher you roll, the more meaning you can get out of it. Speaking of languages, before I forget, you do have Thieves' Cant. That is something to remember. So you can speak in code to people who are also thieves. Handle poison. So important thing to know about handle poison. If you roll a lower than a 10, then you have poisoned yourself. So this means that just about anybody who's not a thief, because remember, you have to be skilled in something to get to roll a d20, otherwise you roll a d10. So someone who's not a thief is very, very likely, almost certain, to poison themselves if they mess with poison. if they try to apply poison on their blades or something like that. That is a thief ability. That's something that they know how to do, probably. And then you have cast spell from scroll. This is one of the things that makes thieves really interesting, is that they actually can use spell scrolls even though they are not spell casters. So, if you find a scroll in the wild, you don't originally get to get a very good chance of casting it at all, I would say. Like, for instance, this level 1 person they would roll a d10 minus 1. So other people don't get to roll anything at all because they just don't, a warrior, they just can't do it. They just can't do it. This thief, they get to try, but keep in mind that whenever they're doing a spell check, they typically need to roll at least a 12 for like a level 1 spell. So is that possible with this character? Not without spending luck. So, and you might be spending a lot of it, depending on, what the spell is. But you can still pull it off. That's the thing that's pretty amazing. You can't spell burn, and you don't get to apply your your modifiers to it, if I remember correctly. I think that might be a goof on the generator, because it shouldn't, let's say, does not apply intelligence or personality modifiers. So why do they have a -1? I think that they fucked up on that, because there's not supposed to be a negative. So it would just be a D10. So D10, no minus, and this is them trying to cast a spell. So it's going to be very hard for them. But they level up a little bit. Eventually, it gets to be a point where you can have a moderate chance of passing it with some luck. So luck is very, very, very important. What else do you need to know? So we covered this. I mean, they can wear whatever armor they need. So you can deck them out in basically full ass armor. You could put them in full plate if you wanted to, and you could give them a longsword. I don't think that it says they can use a shield, but that's something that you can do. So you can use a longsword, you can use full plate, and you can just get in the thick of things and just fight like that. But your ability checks are going to be really messed up. I would say that would affect, obviously, sneaking, hiding in shadows, all those kinds of things. So, I mean, that is one thing that's a little bit different, is, in 5th edition, a thief wearing full plate, or a rogue, I guess I would say, wearing full plate, it's not really going to happen. In this, it's a viable strategy. If you are not going to be sneaking, you're not trying to get these abilities to work, you could wear full plate and you could still backstab. I don't see any reason why you couldn't. I don't think there's anything in here that says that the check penalty is going to apply to that. I could be wrong. But from everything that I saw, it looked like the check penalty applies if you're doing something that requires swift movement. So that would be sneaking. That would be, I would say even hiding. That would be climbing, obviously. That would be... Well, I mean, I think that's pretty much where it would fall. Doing any kind of agility-based check is where that's going to come in. And I would not necessarily consider backstabbing that, although I could see an argument for it. So, it's interesting. There's a lot of ways that this is just a different class compared to what you're dealing with in 5th edition. And ultimately, I really love how the flavor of this is in comparison. This is the classic thief, they really feel like they have a ton to offer that nobody else can offer, really. Bar none. Just the mere fact that they can roll a d20 to find a trap, And, just the fact that the system basically tells you by virtue of this that somebody who's not trained in finding traps, which is anybody who's not a thief, who doesn't have an occupation, like let's say the trapper occupation, I would say they could roll a d20. But anybody else, nope. You can't do it. Like you're gonna roll a d10 and you're gonna be very happy if you find it. Now I will say this: they do have a DC of like 10 or so with certain very obvious traps, but you're the specialist, and that's something that really comes across with this. I think that just about does it. I'm about to have to get back to work, but I hope that you got something out of this. So that really covers the 4 main classes. So we just have the demi-humans to go over. I think I'm going to take this further and go into running the game, maybe like talking about some modules. I really just want to get people into this. So, the more I go into this, the more I want to go into this. That's just funny how that's working. But that's it for me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and go sneak around and stab somebody. Have a great day. Not in real life. And, this is I was about to say this is a Christian channel. This is a not violent channel. So have a good one.